We've had a disconnection in our relationship for a long time. What do we do?
Brannon, you're living the good life.
Yeah, that's right. Just at the happiest place on earth.
Yeah, that's great, man. I'm glad that you still kind of follow through with those old traditions.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Disney guy, but my daughter really wanted to come, so we're here, and she had a blast, and she spent time with her cousin, and it was awesome. It was great, but man, Disney World knows how to drain your pocketbook and drain your energy. I got blisters all over my feet. I got in like 22,000 steps a day for the last 3 days.
Hey, that's a good workout.
Yeah, but it's you stand in a lot of lines. It's and you have a blast. So
Yeah, well, I'm glad you had a good time, man.
I gotta say, Epcot, man, I almost skipped it because I was like,
I've heard that's
that
the
was
best
my
part.
favorite. I loved it. It was
Yeah,
awesome. So yeah, it's good stuff.
good for you. Yeah, well, you're talking to us from a hotel room, so hopefully your sound stays pretty good. Um, but yeah, let's jump into it. We've got a couple of guests on, a couple here with us. We've got Marianne and Dustin.
I got
Thank you guys for the courage to come on. Thanks for being here with us. Why don't you guys just introduce yourselves, tell a little bit of your background, and then ask your question. We'll get going.
Okay. I'm Mary Ann. We've been married for 30 years, been together for probably 33 or so. It's um, it's been a long time of kind of disconnection. I have kind of a complicated um, past with some sexual abuse, and all that kind of has kind of added to some of the issues that we've been having as a couple. Um, a few years ago, I kind of really got serious about going, I've been therapy on and off throughout my life. And about 2.5 years ago or so, I started really getting serious with therapy and watching podcasts and reading the books and doing all the articles to really kind of work through some of the things that I was going through personally as well as in our marriage and what I was feeling. And that's when I first kind of heard the whole term betrayal trauma, and it hit me like a ton of bricks. And this first time I ever really felt like it fit what I was had been experiencing in our marriage. I actually moved out of the house last July. Um, but the job that I had, the organization closed. So I moved back in just for financial reasons. And now I feel like I really do need to move back out. I'm really kind of struggling to not be agitated and kind of shut down emotionally.
I'm Dustin. Man, I didn't even realize I was going to be on this podcast today. Um, Marianne and I were talking, and then she invited me. Um, yeah, it's been a disconnect like that, and it's been a disconnect emotionally, and kind of just swallow it and just hold it in kind of a deal. That's how we've kind of functioned, I think, in the last maybe 15 years. We kind of poured all ourselves into our children. We're empty nesters now. And I think that the things that are in my life that I have done and stuff are coming to roost, and I'm having to deal with them. Marianne started doing the counseling 2 years ago. She told me what she was doing and stuff, and I wouldn't say I've fought it. I've tried to I ignored it. You know, I tell myself I'm gonna do the counseling, and then something comes up and I make an excuse for it. I have a men's Bible study that we meet, and I have talked to them, and kind of shared some deep things with them regarding, our relationship and stuff. And I have some accountability there. But I have not gone after any type of counseling. So I think that's a real frustration for her. And I know it is. Some things I had to come to terms with before I could even feel like I could go to counseling, you know. That kind of all hit ahead, I think, this last week, and I had expressed some stuff that had happened and stuff, and but I felt like I had to do that before I could make another step. So that's where I'm kind of at. Dude, does that make sense to you guys? I mean,
Are you saying that you kind of came out with some things that you needed to before counseling
yeah,
would
for
have
sure.
helped?
For my
Okay.
own good and for the relationship. I think we both want to be closer and intimate, and that's the hope and the goal. But there's like a vast Grand Canyon to get there, and you know, uh,
How many kids do you guys have?
We have three. They're all adult. The youngest one is 20, I have to do math, 23.
23.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, and the oldest is 28.
Nice. And how do the kids like, how's your relationship with them?
I think both of us have pretty strong relationships with all three kids. He's especially close with our son. Um, we have one son, two daughters. But yeah.
So
yeah,
so as parents, that's worked well for you guys.
oh yeah,
Parenting, connecting with the kids, but together it's always been a struggle, sounds like.
Yeah, I think I feel like we were young and dumb when we got married. There was a lot that was going on, and it was a lot that kind of wasn't working. But I think I really felt that we could kind of work through. I felt like like he was into me, like I was like he was all about me. Um, and that gave me some kind of hope and kind of some security, I guess, which wasn't really fair, not, kind of look at the way I looked at it then. Um, and it was probably, I don't know, maybe 10 or 11 years into our marriage. Um, that actually a couple years into my our marriage, he let me know that he struggled with porn addiction, had a porn addiction. And at that point, he started the Wild at Heart study with some people at church. And even though it really kind of devastated me because I know that was something like in my family history that really caused issues, I was like, well, he's handling it. We'll just kind of keep kind of going. And then like 10 or 11 years into our marriage, is when I just found some emails where kind of the first time I noticed that there was something kind of going on, and that I never really thought that would happen. And I thought, okay, this has happened. I confronted him. We're going to counseling. This is going to be that thing that kind of, we're going to rally. He's going to be like, forget her. It'll be all about me. And that didn't really happen. Um, I didn't realize the extent to kind of what was really, I think, going on. I didn't see it kind of for what it really was. Um, and then, kind of, um, I don't remember how much later. There have been a couple things where I've just kind of stumbled across things. Um, and then there was an incident like after I think it's been about 15 years ago. There was a person that I worked with that was showing me kind of attention, and I fell for it, the temptation, and flirted back. And I did not, I mean, it seems silly to say, I did not think that he was interested in anything else, but he was. And when it turned out to be really bad, because when I tried to get out of the situation. He was not really allowing me to kind of say no and to leave. And when that just it was several years later before I told Dustin about that, and it did not go well at all. Um, and then there have been, so that's been kind of another point that's kind of coming into play
How did that
now.
how did that relationship end, Marianne?
Um, the administration at the caught when so he was actually he's also moved into a different role, so we were not around each other. But after that, also the administration found out about it. Um, and he was let go, and I was moved to a different location.
He was doing it with several people, so
Yeah.
doing it too, yes.
Um, and then it was at that point I kind of did more kind of therapy to look into myself, kind of why I would kind of put myself in that situation. And I felt like I made some good strides into kind of putting some things kind of mentally in place to kind of to make sure that I am, just protecting myself and my marriage and all that. And then so there are several more instances that things popped up where I would recognize things on social media that Dustin was just, more than just kind of looking at other women, but like having actual, emotional relationships with them. Um, and I kind of just got to the point where I just told myself so I wouldn't keep experiencing this shock and the nausea and the upset, like it's probably just always going on. And I think when I kind of made that real decision, that's when it really just like I did not want to be connected. It didn't feel like being connected. I just didn't, it didn't feel safe. It felt like every time he would even hug me or pay attention to me, I'm like, you're probably also doing this with some, giving attention to some other woman at the same time you're doing this to me, because I know that it happened in the past. And that's kind of been a thing that was kind of in my head for a while. And it got to the point where I was just like, I almost felt like relationships weren't really real. That I want to see people walking around. I'm like, they're deluded. Like that's just not a real thing. And that sex is just something that it's for men and they just used women for it. Um, Thankfully, kind of through some of the work that I was doing, just actually through podcasts and through therapy, I'm actually don't believe that anymore. And I feel like I've made strides to kind of think and understand what a healthy relationship and a healthy sexual relationship is, and realizing that what I felt was really missing was that kind of trust, that real intimacy. And I don't feel comfortable really connecting with him until that trust is there.
Wow. It sounds like you guys have traveled quite a road, quite a path over the last several decades.
Yeah.
Some real big up and downs, sounds like some significant traumatic things for both of you guys actually. Um, it's amazing that you guys are sitting here in the same room talking to us right now.
The funny thing is we're best friends. I mean, and we talked about it. That's a hard thing to kind of deal with, that we enjoy each other. I mean, obviously, the history of what's happened and stuff, but I do respect Marianne. She is an amazing person, and always has been, you know. In fact, I think a lot of it was feeling that I wasn't even worthy of her in a lot of ways, you know. I kind of had that I don't know, man, we were talking about that today, and it's kind of a cop out though. You were saying, that I don't know. Maybe I held too much of a, and I almost treated her like she was a parent almost, you know what I mean? Almost
Hmm.
yeah, I don't know. I'm getting off subject, I guess, but anyway.
Well, I mean, Eldridge talks about that, right? About consuming a woman and using her for your needs,
In your Wild at Heart book.
versus loving her.
All right.
But I just want to say, I want to say something to each of you. One, Dustin, you being here is courageous, just showing up today, just not knowing what you're getting yourself into. I just want to give you huge props for that. And um, it shows that you have some desire to make this right.
I, I do want us to be, I want that intimate relationship, like I said, but there's a Grand Canyon there, and I don't know what the future is. I mean,
Right.
so I share with the guys in my Bible study what's going on and stuff, but and the hope, and they pray for me and stuff. But yeah, I don't know what the future is, and that's unsettling, you know. So
That is unsettling. Um, but the future, you can definitely shape the future according to the work that you do today, and things can shift and change. That I wanted to say to you, Marianne, it 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 seems like you've humbly done a lot of work on yourself, and that you've gained a lot of consciousness and awareness of why you are the way you are and what you're dealing with and where you're at. Um, from my vantage point, it seems like, Dustin, you want that intimate relationship, you desire that, you would like to figure out how to cross that Grand Canyon. For you, Marianne, I'm wondering, is that what you want? Is that where you're at still? Do you desire that?
I I hope for that.
Okay.
Um, I am not as confident that that will happen, but I'm I do feel after the 2 years of where I felt like, and I think there was maybe some kind of miscommunication. I mean, I thought like 2 years ago we kind of had a moment where, as like we even talked to the kids about it, like I'm going to be going to counseling, working on myself. Your dad's going to be doing the same thing, and we're going to kind of see, hopefully, things go. And since that hasn't happened in that time, like I really do feel like I need to move out and start, just kind of being on my own. And if things start happening where trust is being rebuilt, I'm all about it. But I'm not going to stay here and hope that that happens, I guess.
Yep, that's a boundary. That's what we call a healthy boundary. So
It's an interesting puzzle that you guys find yourself in. Dustin, I'm I'm hearing you, and it's like, okay, you guys have always, not always, but for a very long time, you've had this like canyon between the two of you guys emotionally. It started off the way that most relationships start off, in the way that you'd expect it to, where you were totally into Marianne. Marianne felt it. She felt like she was the chosen one for you, but then it started to kind of fade, and whatever reasons caused that fading. But underneath the surface, it sounds like there were some things that were going on that actually would naturally have to lead to the fade, even though you think that it's not affecting it. And there's a couple of things that you just said here, Dustin, on your side that I'm already picking up on. Is I came in presenting myself a certain way because I wanted her to be impressed with me, to love me. But on the inside, I didn't feel worthy of her. I felt like almost like I was tricking her into being in a relationship with me. Right.
that nailed it.
Yeah. Yeah. And as a result, then your energy doesn't align with what she thinks she's getting, because now all of a sudden you're like in this deficient place of like, uh-oh, as soon as she finds out who I am, she's going to leave me and we're never going to be. So then that leads to other things, including keeping secrets, and then that feeling of shame that you feel, instead of like confronting that and working into a new place of believing that you're worthy of love, that shame finds outlets to other places that then need to keep more secrets, that then lead to you being pulled away emotionally further and further from the place that you actually want to connect to. And you both feel it. Like that's that wall, that's part of the gap, that's part of the canyon that's there between the two of you is and then that erodes trust because there's no authenticity, there's no honesty, there's no open disclosure with each other about certain things until they kind of get found out. And then once that trust is eroded, the gap gets even further apart. And that's what I'm hearing in you, Marianne, right now. You're like, that's where I'm at right now. And being in the same house is almost too overwhelming for me right now. I shut down and then I can't think clearly and then I can't make my choices. I almost feel like I need more space just to kind of keep my feet planted.
Yes, yes.
Does that make sense to you guys at all? Is that close?
Yeah, for me. Yeah.
How about for you, Dustin?
Yeah, I understand it. It's a spiral downwards because what happens is her negative reactions makes me retreat back into my whatever, and it continues to it affects us both in that way. I mean, I become less guarded. I become more guarded about my feelings and stuff, but I'm hurt too. So, you know, I so anyway.
So the question is okay, then what? Like the reality is if there's shame, that if it's the Grand Canyon, that Grand Canyon is full of shame. And that's why it's like I can't cross that because there's a correlation between shame and a lack of intimacy. It's just how it is. If I hate myself or I don't think I'm enough or I'm not going to be open and vulnerable and even and you add sex addiction in there and it's like, well, now I have sex addiction which is big time proof that I'm not lovable, that I'm not okay. And so how do I get rid of the shame if I can't get rid of that? And so I'm stuck here on this side of the canyon. And the truth is, Dustin, I want to ask you, you say, I haven't dove into therapy because there's been things that I need to disclose or get out first before I do.
Well,
Yeah,
ahead.
go ahead. Go ahead.
I
Explain.
was saying that kind of happened last week, and I've been telling the guys in my Bible study I need to talk about this with Marianne, but being brave enough to do it has been I've lacked. I have not been brave.
Dustin, more than the things that you've done, the lack of courage to be authentic is the thing that's destroying your relationship. Do you see that?
Yeah.
But that therein we're getting to the actual problem. What's the reason why you've struggled to be honest and vulnerable and authentic in the relationship?
Are you asking? I'm saying because I have to come to terms with what I've with myself. I think, I mean, I've been able to just ignore it, and thus I don't have to
What does
deal
that,
with it.
Dustin, what does that mean? Come to terms with myself.
I never thought I was I didn't. Okay, I never thought I was capable of some things. You know what I mean? I was never thought that I would ever, cheat on Marianne and I do not consider, those things that happened in the past that, as I didn't consider them as real things. They were things on internet and stuff that were, relationships with people that really didn't even exist, I guess, in a way. And so I come to terms with the fact that, oh no, you really are doing this. You really are doing this. You are hurting Marianne, and
But Dustin, that's still the things. That's the things that you've done. So
yeah,
and what I mean is those things are not okay. Those things
right.
cause harm, right? Just like Marianne with what happened with you, and I'm sure that caused some stress in the relationship as well, right? But that's not like Dustin, for you, that's not the actual issue. That's the symptom. So you need to you need to get honest and come to terms with the things that you have done, but we're still not down to the issue. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
That
I'm not,
that help?
so, what, yeah, what is the issue? I don't know if I know. I mean,
What is the thing that prevents you from sharing in the first place? Why can you not bring yourself to utter the words of whatever you feel like you need to utter?
And another way to ask it is, what are you seeking from those non-vulnerable relationships? And what are you
attention.
avoiding?
I mean, attention.
And
Uh,
why? Why do you
Go
want that
go
attention?
further.
I don't feel like we, I don't think Marianne, I mean, like it says, the spiral downwards. I don't think I don't think Marianne wants to be with me in, like, and just, as a normal relationship. We're never been a normal relationship. We've never been affectionate. I mean, I'm a very affectionate person. Marianne's never been an affectionate person. And I don't know if I'm getting off the subject or not, but what I'm saying is the lack of attention or concern has always kind of been there, in my opinion. You know what I mean?
Which
Lack of
means
concern
which means what about you?
Yeah,
yeah,
what do you want?
What does
what do I
that
want?
mean? What has that meant when you haven't received that? What has that meant about you on the
Uh,
inside?
I'm not loved. I'm not, she has no concern about me. No, 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 no,
Does this go beyond, Dustin?
Yeah.
Uh, we'll get in with Marianne for here in a minute, but I want to ask you, does this go beyond Marianne? When you say I'm not loved, that feeling of I'm not loved, um, like in terms of your trauma as a child, in terms of just how you feel about you and your life by God even?
no, I feel loved by God. Ultimately, I think that this tool is what God is using to get me to start submitting to Him. I definitely don't feel like I
So
submit to
God is
God. I
fighting for
mean,
you.
what's that?
God is fighting for you. You can see
God
that.
is? Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
that's what you
yeah. I
believe.
mean, God wants to restore my relationship with Him, and ultimately, that is the most important thing. My relationship with God, even more so with Marianne. But this is the tool that he's using to get my attention, and it sucks.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
If you put two good people together and two good people that believed that they were not lovable as they were, would that describe your relationship?
Yeah.
No. So what happens is then the relationship is like, well, the relationship's the issue. We can't get, but it's two good people who don't ultimately know that they're unconditionally loved. There's been trauma, there's been addiction, there's been these things that keep reinforcing that I'm broken so much that I can't fully be vulnerable and authentic here. And so arm's length, I'll use the addiction to keep at arm's length. I'll use shutting down. I'll use manipulation in terms of lack of honesty and omission, and all those little tiny things are the things that are just creating this gap. But the issue is actually not the relationship. Dustin is not Marianne's issue. Marianne is not Dustin's issue.
You
The
just happen
issue
to
is
be the mirror images of your own issues. Right. What think about this? Like, let's put it together just with what little bit you've shared with us already. Marianne, you've said, I already had you, and you got very emotional when you shared this. I have a backstory where I was hurt sexually growing up. That contributed to a belief system that sex is only for men. Basically, I'm an object, and there's not this deeper level of intimacy. I didn't even know what that means sexually. And now I'm married to a man who has learned to cope with his lack of feeling good enough through non-vulnerable sexual acts, whether that's pornography or connecting with other women or whatever else. What belief does that reinforce? The very belief you're trying to climb out of, and vice versa. she starts pulling away and like shutting down and like I'm not gonna, and what does that hit? She's in self-protection mode, but Dustin, to you, that feels like proof. Here it is again. I'm unlovable. Like I'm never going to measure up. I'll never be good enough. And now, to boot, my shame has driven me to a place where I can't look myself in the mirror and like what I see because all I see is a guy who did things that I never thought I was capable of doing. So then I'm going to go chase it back down again in maybe in my relationship or maybe in some other way where I don't have to be vulnerable, but it's only going to double me down on the shame that I feel. And then we both come to therapy and it's like, man, our marriage isn't working. Like teach us a couple communication skills and we'll be good to go and go on our way. And it's like, no, like we can teach you some communication skills, which then means you'll be able to weaponize those things against each other even better. Unless the deeper work is taking place. And here's the trap that I think, Dustin, you've been in. You get, and this is classic. I'm so grateful you're here because you being here is going to be a gift to a lot of other men who are listening right now. I'll go to therapy when. I'll tell my wife when. I'll go as soon as I clean up my side of the street, then I'll go do the work. As soon as I'm no longer have this problem, I don't have any more secrets, then I'll go tell her everything that I need to tell her. But that's the trap because the whole reason you're not telling her is because the shame is holding you from telling her. So you're never going to do the work until you jump off the cliff, so to speak, and say, there's a quote on my wall back here that says, a man without decision of character can never be said to belong to himself. He belongs to whatever can make captive of him. And right now you're being made captive of all sorts of things because you haven't looked yourself in the mirror and said, I don't have a porn problem. I have a shame problem. I have an integrity problem. I have a way of like showing up. I have an energy problem. And that's why I need to go dive in and do my work because the fruit of the plant is the acting out. The roots of the plant are the shame and the belief systems about not being lovable. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
The fear is that if I go do the work, what will I find out? I might find out that all my shame is true, and
I might
versus,
lose my marriage.
yeah,
That
or yeah,
I'm losing it anyway. So I mean,
that, Dustin, if you do what you've always done, you're going to get what you've always gotten. And
yeah.
for both of you to just like, you know what, let's just go for it. Like all this facade that we're holding up and all this stuff, like we might as well go out with a bang and see if it'll actually work, right? Um, do you see what I'm saying? And so I'm going to be a little blunt with you, Dustin, and I'm doing this out of fighting for you, I promise. There's a difference between you and Marianne. You both have your shame, you both have your trauma, you both have your stuff. But what I'm hearing is that she's repeatedly gone back and tried to do therapy. She's repeatedly gone back and tried to work on it. And there's some fear that's kicking your ass that's saying, yeah, I don't want to go get too vulnerable. And I hate to tell you this, but there is no easy way to fix this. You want to fix this, you got to go through the pain. You got to go through the discomfort. You got to face the beast in the eye. Like you have to do, you're trying to do it every other way. Like, well, I'll wait until this, or, I'll go to this men's group, but I won't like go all in and get totally vulnerable there. Like you go all in, you deal with the beast. Now, Marianne, have you done that? I don't know. I hope so. You've had a lot of trauma in your life, right? Seems like you've learned a lot. There's probably work to do still there. There's probably demons to face still, right? But for both of you to be willing to do that is the only way that you then start showing up as trustworthy people that will really desire intimacy. You'll want each other to see you because I love me now. The trauma has helped me understand who I really am now because I've done that hard work, right? So that's the only way. And all the protective parts and things will come up and say like, oh, don't do it that like don't go there. Like, that's too scary. That's too hard. Tyler and I have plenty of modalities and plenty of things and plenty of suggestions of ways you can go into the belly of the fire right into the cave.
That's the pathway forward. You know, you guys, it sounds like you're Christian. Is that the Bible study? I was just thinking as Brannon's talking, there's kind of a pathway that tends to get followed, and it's not a very fun one, but it seems to be necessary in a lot of cases. And I was just thinking about Peter. You know, Christ tells Peter, "Hey, before the day ends, you're going to deny me 3 times." And Peter's like, "No way, no way, never do those things." And then, and then what gets in the way of Peter? Like, why does Peter actually deny Christ?
He's scared. He's
Fear.
scared
He's
for his life, or
he's scared. He's scared of what?
he's scared of the Pharisees, and he's scared of being hurt, I guess, killed or something.
That's right. That shame is the equivalent emotionally to the fear Peter felt about his own life. And in that moment, when he was in fight or flight, when he was in trauma, he succumbed to actually being dishonest, and he denied Christ 3 times. And then after he denied Christ, what happened?
Uh,
What
he,
did he do?
he ran from the temple, I think, or
Yeah.
and then of course Jesus restored him when he
He
was
went out. He went out. What did he do though? He left, and then he went out and he wept bitterly.
yeah.
He wept bitterly. He had to come to himself. He had to go, I just did those things. Oh my gosh. Like I just did them. Christ said I would, and I did. And oh my gosh. And he wept bitterly. He had to come to the place. Same thing happens in the story of the prodigal son. He has to go to the point of eating with the pigs to realize that he comes to himself and says, what am I doing? Like what my dad's servants are doing better than I am right now because of my choices. That's the same thing that happens in the 12 steps. You got to come to 3 questions. I have a problem. It's a big problem. I'm responsible. And where I think Brannon's been trying to go is the problem isn't the porn and the acting out. That's where the pain is happening. The problem is I haven't come to myself yet. And if I keep hiding and like saying, oh, therapy is stupid, or I shouldn't reach out to people, or I can't tell anybody yet, like you can't even get through the first step, the bitter step. That step has to happen. And that's where courage happens to lie too. And guess what? Maybe you don't believe it right now, but you were born to be a courageous being. That's part of who your true identity is. At least if you're a Christian, you have to believe that because you come to a fallen world where you have to navigate struggles and challenges and come to understand what the atonement of Christ is really about. But we go sit and hide in the corner and then try to be on the sidelines and then wonder why we didn't get everything we wanted in this life.
Right.
I'm
Um,
what Tyler's talking about is like my favorite topic. Let go and let God. Turn your will and your life over to the care of God. This is about faith. This isn't about working harder, doing more, um, manipulating things. It's about letting go in true faith and surrender. Marianne, I'm wondering, you haven't talked a bunch, and I'm just kind of wondering where you're at, how you're feeling, what's going on inside of you.
Um, I, I guess I still feel very guarded. There's a part of me that's really, so having listened to basically your podcast from beginning to end, I'm very thankful for Dustin to hear these things from you guys. One of the things I appreciate very much is that like you are willing to hold everybody's feet to the fire if they need it, and that I just appreciate your willingness to kind of dig deep and go with people where they need to go without like I don't know, I feel like sometimes people try to be nice about it when that's not helpful. What kind of telling people what they really need to hear. So I'm thankful and grateful that he's able to hear that from you, from both of you. Um,
But I gotta say, Marianne, and you're kind of
Yeah, that was a really good way of skirting Brannon's question.
You're very eloquent.
It was really nice. Thank you.
I
Thank you.
sense doubt. I sense something there.
Yeah,
There's
there's an energy coming through the screen at us that there's yeah, but like
Yeah.
okay.
I, yeah, I mean, I guess what I'm feeling is this is great.
You can say
But
but
I
to
still
us.
but I still feel like I need to go. Like I still feel like I need to go. I I feel like it will take me a while before before this is feels like we are going toward a direction where we could actually reconnect. There's a and I sometimes I struggle with not focusing. There's a lot about things that have happened in the past that I haven't that I've worked through it in counseling and stuff that I haven't actually talked to Dustin about. And but I still feel like I still hold those things. If that makes what I mean, like should so a lot of those things I think are still kind of piling up as I'm making that decision to leave, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Like there's just all these things. I don't even feel like we're in a position where I can even have those conversations with him because I think there's a there's some disconnect in our understanding of the importance of certain things that I don't think it's even worth having those
Yeah,
conversations.
I'm hearing that there's a lack of like safety and trust to be able to just fully open up about everything.
Yeah.
And Marianne, Tyler's good, but one little podcast episode doesn't solve all the problems. He's really good. Usually he can pull it off, but maybe not today. No, the reality is like we've kind of talked about, and I know you guys have been at this a long time and stuff, but we talked about square one today about like turning and facing this and saying, okay, like I'm going to actually do the right work. And then after that, there's a there's a process of healing that takes place. This isn't a snap of the fingers and voila, all the demons go away. This is a day in and day out humble process of healing that happens. And Tyler and I have seen it where when people humbly work that process, it absolutely works. And sometimes it ends up in a thriving marriage, and sometimes it ends up in an awesome divorce. But that process absolutely works. And it's there for the taking if you guys want to move forward in it. But yeah, it's not going to be turn on the switch and all of a sudden like you're having passionate sex or something. That's not happening, right? So, Marianne, if you need to take your space, take your space. It's okay to take that space, and you guys can still hold on to hope and say, okay, we're working towards something here. Like we don't need to like let it all go yet. Um, and that's okay. Sometimes that's necessary, right? So
One of the benefits to that approach is that, Marianne, you can go and look yourself in the mirror and have whatever moments you need to and work on yourself. And part of that is staying grounded as much as you can, meaning emotionally grounded. And so if you're in a space right now where that groundedness, you can't keep it, then you should take more space because you're going to make better decisions. You're going to be kinder. You're going to be more able to think clearly and have that kind of a peaceful, grounded place to make your decisions from rather than a fearful, elevated place. And then as you lean into that, if both of you guys go and do that, then the authenticity with which you do it because you're doing it for yourselves is actually the part that starts to rebuild trust back into the relationship if that's going to happen. And as two people do that work, then you look across the street and you're like, oh man, like he's diving into his like shame stuff and he went and signed himself up for a group. And not that those things are the right thing to do, but it's the heart that says, I'm going to do whatever it takes.
I can feel his healthy masculinity.
I can feel that he's not doing it to try to keep me on the hook anymore. He's doing it because he realizes I don't want to weep bitterly again anymore. I got to go figure this out. And by the way, Peter became the rock, right? He was the rock, but he had to go through that. That's, I think, how trauma shapes us. Is trauma will shape us if we do our work into something stronger, into something better. So I agree with you. I think you're swallowed up a little bit by the fear cycle when you're too close and you've got some resentments that you're trying to work through too. If you need the space and distance, get to the space and distance that you need in order to be planted emotionally. And then start leaning when it looks like the conditions are right and lean out when the conditions are wrong. That's totally okay to do that while you do your own work.
We're
Um,
we're running low on time, and we're just scratching the surface here. But Dustin, I want to check in with you. Just how you feeling? How was this for you?
Oh, it's great. It's great. Actually, it gives me a little bit more hope. I mean, yeah, I know I need to follow through and start counseling and stuff, and I've been telling myself that for a long time, but I have to do it. So,
Yeah.
um,
Um, yeah, one of the hardest parts of my job is um, seeing two really good people who are great friends with each other have the shame kick their ass a little bit and destroy their families. And um, I don't know what's going to happen with you guys, but I do believe that you can heal this and that you can thrive together. If you want it, it's possible. But we're not gonna but we're gonna shoot straight with you. It's a process. It's hard. You have to face your pain. You got to do the actual work, and you have to surrender. Um, but there's a beauty in it, in that people think they're doing it for their relationship, and what they find is they actually find peace within themselves, and that's more important than anything. So thank you for coming on today, you guys. Really appreciate you opening up and being vulnerable. You help other people by coming on. So thank you.
yeah, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I
I
just
thought I
add.
was on the Property Brothers.
Tyler's a great designer, but
You do not want anything I've designed, I promise. No, but yeah, I appreciate you guys both being willing to come on. I would just add one more thing to what Brannon said, that the benefit of doing the work on yourself that way while allowing your partner to choose to or not is that if it works out for your marriage, great. That's the only way you can actually have the depth you want anyway, is two authentic people showing up in their strengths, offering that to one another. And if it doesn't work out because one or the other of you decides that you're a different person or you don't want to do that work, you're still in a better spot than you would have been by not doing the work.
yeah.
So you're playing with house money either way. Um, so I feel a ton of love for you guys, even though I just met you 45 minutes ago. I wish you guys both the very best. We'd love to maybe, depending on where things go, touch base with you guys, a few months down the road and see where you're at and what your trajectories are. Um, but thank you for coming on. Thank you to our listeners for being here. We appreciate you being here. If this is impactful, please share it with other people. And until next time, keep on keeping on.
Thank you.